On 5 News, Theresa May says she won't endorse her predecessor's controversial honours list, but she won't block David Cameron's wishes either. Labour says it's the worst example of the old boys network.
Most reasonable people would say it's unacceptable to give Mrs Cameron's stylist an OBE and to hand out knighthoods to members of Parliament like confetti.
Also this evening, life after cancer. More are surviving the disease than ever before, but that doesn't mean the problems stop.
I couldn't pay my credit cards because I was out of work, phone up the call centres and they immediately just said, well, we'll default you then. No help whatsoever.
The UK's terror threat, police say they're tracking thousands of potential terrorists right now. A historic day for Yorkshire as the Dales National Park gets even bigger. And get ready for another round of Potter Mania with a new book and play set to go global. Hello and welcome to 5 News. I'm Sian Williams. Aides, chauffeurs, even his wife's stylist, just a few of those who are reportedly in line for gongs as part of David Cameron's resignation honours list. The leaked list has led to claims of cronyism and of rewarding failure. Some of those expected to be honoured are prominent members of the Remain campaign who lost the EU referendum. While opposition MPs say the new Prime Minister Theresa May should get involved and reform the system, but she's staying out of it. Our political editor, Andy Bell, reports.
As he left Downing Street on that blustery afternoon less than 3 weeks ago, David Cameron had something particular he wanted to say.
I want to thank everyone who's given so much support to me personally over these years. The incredible team at Number 10 and my political advisors, some of whom have been with me since the day I stood for my party's leadership 11 years ago.
But now it seems that wasn't enough. According to leaked reports, he wants to reward some of his closest political allies and friends with honours. So George Osborne, now in the wilderness, may be made a companion of honour. Philip Hammond and Michael Fallon may be knighted. They're still ministers, but they backed the Remain camp in the referendum out of loyalty to David Cameron. And there could be honours too for aides closer to home, like Isabel Spearman, a stylist advising Samantha Cameron, who may be given the OBE. And Will Straw, a Labour Party member, helped run the Remain campaign. He may get a CBE. The opposition says this is unacceptable and the current Prime Minister should intervene.
If it was down to me, I would abolish resignation honours, and I think Theresa May should consider that. But at least if she's not going to abolish it, she should take responsibility. And if she chooses to approve this list, it will be Theresa May that gives Mrs Cameron's stylist an OBE. It will be Mrs May that gives these MPs their knighthoods, and she will be responsible for it.
Under the rules, it's the current Prime Minister who sends the final list to the Queen. But today, a spokesperson for Theresa May said she won't intervene, as that would set a very bad precedent. Desmond Swayne was David Cameron's parliamentary private secretary. He was knighted in the last Queen's birthday honours, and today he's defended his former boss.
A Prime Minister is out of office unexpectedly and has a debt of honour of people that, you know, he's relied on very heavily in important ways, that suddenly he needs to recognise that and say thank you in a particularly tangible way. And I think this is it.
He may have left Downing Street, but it seems some of the last decisions he took here mean he's not going quietly.
So, Andy, with Theresa May refusing really to get involved, does that mean that David Cameron's reported list will get approval?
We assume so. Assuming these are the correct names, they will be vetted by something called the Honours Committee, and as long as there's no serious impropriety there, they'll go through. And now we know that Theresa May isn't going to intervene in this, then we assume that those people recommended for honours will eventually get them. The problem with stories like this is it does make people question the whole honours system. Are people rewarded simply for doing the jobs they're paid to do, for instance? Or more seriously, I would suggest, are people rewarded for perhaps donating large sums of money to particular causes or to a particular political party? Today, Jeremy Corbyn, the leader of the Labour Party, said he wants to make the honours system more open and democratic. Frankly, we have heard that before. It often turns out that Prime Ministers discover they value the kind of patronage, the kind of power that comes with being able to bestow these kinds of honours.
Andy, thank you. Diagnosis and treatment for those with cancer is so much better than it was in the 70s that if you've got it, you're twice as likely to survive for at least a decade than you would have been then. Sadly, the disease is complex and so are its outcomes. Many of those who are still alive after tackling it 40 years ago are still dealing with the lifelong side effects. Our health correspondent Catherine Jones reports.
Being told you have cancer is devastating news to receive. But since the 1970s, research into diagnosis and treatment has made vast progress. Newly developed therapies now offer many a long life after cancer. But surviving the disease does not mean living without its consequences. Over the last 25 years, Helen has fought 6 different cancers. At times, she's become depressed, and it's made it tough for her to hold down a job.
I couldn't pay my credit cards because I was out of work, phone up the call centres and they immediately just say, well, we'll default you then. You then go back and say, excuse me, but I've got cancer, it's not my fault, please don't blacken my credit record. But they don't listen and they just say, as far as they're concerned, you're just making excuses for not paying your bills.
Back in 1971, only 1 in 4 people with cancer survived for 10 years. The most recent figures show that now 1 in 2 will survive that long, and often for many decades more. But a quarter of those patients, an estimated 625,000 people in the UK, live in poor health or with a disability as a result of having had the disease.
The NHS offers fantastic clinical care, but it needs to remember that people have lives to live and that they really must be able to live those lives best. So the services that the NHS, social care, local authorities provide must be around supporting people to get back to their quality of life.
The government has pledged that by 2020, every cancer patient will get a recovery package tailored to their individual needs. But experts warn the strain on the health service will restrict what's possible.
The resources available to the NHS over the next few years are just enough to keep track of the growth in population. There's no more money on top of that, and that's assuming some absolutely heroic efficiency targets, which I think many in the NHS are very doubtful that are achievable. So quite where new money to pay for cancer comes from is not at all clear to me.
Medical advances have made surviving cancer increasingly common. But living well afterwards remains a challenge for survivors and for those who treat and support them.
So, Cathy, cancer survival rates much improved. That does mean, though, there's more pressure on the NHS. It does, and there's some very laudable aims set out by a government-commissioned report that came out last year by the Independent Cancer Task Force. One of the aims I picked out, for example, to drive a national ambition to achieve earlier diagnosis. But then, on the other hand, you look at the reality at the moment, the figures for the key cancer target that hospitals have to reach to see 85% of patients within 2 months of them being referred with suspected cancer by a GP, that target's been missed almost every single month for the last 2 years. It meant that in May, 2,000 people waited more than 2 months to be seen, 500 waited more than 3 months. It must be very distressing to go through that as a patient, and it just shows the large gap between the ambition and the reality. Cathy, thank you. A man who attempted to behead a passenger at a tube stop in East London has been jailed for life.
You ain't no Muslim, bruv.
Mahidin Meyer was finally subdued by police after attacking people with a knife at Ecclestone station last December. He claimed to be inspired by so-called Islamic State and was suffering from paranoid schizophrenia at the time of the attack. A man and woman have been arrested on suspicion of murder after a baby who was seriously injured died in hospital. The 3-month-old boy was admitted to Bristol Children's Hospital on Saturday but died last night. A 20-year-old woman and 26-year-old man are still in custody in connection with the case. A 12-year-old is among 4 boys charged with murder after a man was injured outside a McDonald's restaurant in Greater Manchester. The victim, who's been named as Bradley Moore, died later in hospital. The boys appeared before magistrates earlier today. They were remanded to appear at Manchester Crown Court later. The public made more than 3,600 contributions to the fight against terrorism every day. That's according to the UK's most senior counter-terror officer. It comes a day after another leading police officer warned that an attack in Britain was a case of when and not if. Charlotte Grant has more.
We've already been warned. A terror attack here in Britain is a case of when, not if. Today, the man in charge of policing terror said detectives face a continual threat of potential attacks.
At any one time, we've got several thousand people that we're concerned about to a degree. At the top of that pyramid are the highest risk operations. Those high risk operations are sometimes people who are planning and moving towards attacks.
With a terror attack on UK soil seen as highly likely, police training exercises like this one in a Manchester shopping centre earlier this year are vital. But with a rise in so-called lone wolf attacks, like the one in Nice, where a man drove a lorry into crowds of people, it's getting much more difficult to know when or where an attack might happen.
So that's where we come in, with police today praising the contribution of the public in helping to foil potential terrorist attacks. For example, members of the public have called the confidential anti-terrorist hotline an average of 32 times a day. Police say we all need to do our part to prevent another terrorist attack happening.
Police say these public contributions to the fight against terrorism can help disrupt attacks.
It may be they've been on our radar and there's a bit of intelligence, or it may be someone in the community or a friend or a relative had half a sign that they were gravitating towards extremism and terrorism. So between us, I think there is no attack which is inevitable.
The relationship between police and public is now more important than ever before. Charlotte Grant, 5 News.
The mother-in-law of Formula One boss Bernie Ecclestone has been freed unharmed after being kidnapped in Brazil. The 67-year-old was abducted from her home in Sao Paulo 10 days ago with £28 million demanded for her release. It took a major police operation to set her free. Simon Weigar has been following the story for us. Simon, just bring us up to speed.
This is 67-year-old Aparecida Schunk. She is the mother of Fabiana Ecclestone, who's married to Bernie, the boss of Formula One, the 4th richest man in the UK. This is the dramatic moment she was released.
Peço para os bandidos não sequestrar ninguém em São Paulo, que eles vão preso.
And she's saying there, I only asked for these bandits to be jailed so they can't abduct anyone else in Sao Paulo. She was unharmed, and you can see her there hugging another of her daughters. This is the house where she was held for 1 week by 2 men. As you say, they were demanding this record ransom of £28 million, and we understand that nothing was paid.
How involved were the Ecclestones in this operation?
Very involved behind the scenes. We understand that they wanted to go to Brazil, but were advised against it by the police there. This is Fabiana with Bernie Ecclestone. They've been married for a few years. They offered to hire a private security team, but they were advised it would be counterproductive. And we understand that police intercepts of phone calls led them to the hostage situation. This is Fabiana with her mother before the drama. The good news is she is unhurt. There are hundreds of cases like this every year, but this one ended well.
Simon, thank you. Still to come on the programme. How the Yorkshire Dales just got bigger and not everyone's happy about it. And it's Potter mania again, how the Wizard's latest adventure is predicted to be another bestseller and it's not even a novel. All that and more after the break. Hello and welcome back. You're watching 5 News. They're 2 of the most beautiful national parks in England, but now the Lake District and the Yorkshire Dales have got bigger and, according to some, even better. In total, they've been extended by 188 square miles, and it's to try to boost tourism. Well, this is how the 2 national parks used to look. But now, thanks to the extensions in the east and south of the Lake District and the north and west of the Yorkshire Dales, the boundaries almost touch either side of the M6. Peter Lane has been to meet some of those who live in the affected areas to find out what they make of the changes.
The village of Orton in Cumbria now has something of a new identity. It's become part of the Yorkshire Dales National Park, which has just got 24% bigger. So ramblers here from Lancashire today found themselves walking into territory now labelled, in one sense at least, Yorkshire.
It doesn't matter what name you give to it, a national park by any name, as long as it's looked after, that's fine with me.
For the community here, like the local chocolate makers, life should be about to get sweeter, as being in the park puts you on the tourist trail.
The theory is that when people come, they will stay longer, they will spend more money, which will all help our business to thrive and prosper. I think it's a nice badge to be wearing, isn't it? That you're part of the national park. It's got that kind of kudos. It's got that ring about nice landscapes, good character.
And what a landscape it is. The Yorkshire Dales National Park was designated 60 years ago to protect scenery, wildlife and cultural heritage. Now old administrative boundaries have been revisited and removed, making it even bigger. But that means the park creeps into more of Cumbria and Lancashire.
It's called the Yorkshire Dales National Park Authority, but that's just a name. This place used to be called Westmoreland. It's now called Cumbria. So what? What we're talking about is the landscape that's within.
So what's the catch? Well, some warn that getting planning permission could be trickier for residents inside the new, bigger zone.
There will be implications. The national parks are the most protected landscapes in the country, so the main tool for delivering that is the planning system. So clearly there will be more onerous planning conditions placed on businesses and local residents. I look around me and I don't see an imminent threat to our great green land, so I'm still slightly confused as to why we need an extension to the national park.
Both the Yorkshire Dales and Lake District National Parks have been increased in size, so if you haven't visited yet, there's even more reason for a holiday on home shores this summer. Peter Lane, 5 News.
To the United States now, and 10 more people in Florida have been confirmed to be carrying the Zika virus. That brings the total number to 14. It's thought all of those affected contracted the disease from mosquitoes in an area just north of downtown Miami. A travel notice to prevent pregnant women or those planning to get pregnant going to the area is to be issued. A leading crash investigator says he believes the missing plane MH370 was flown deliberately into the sea. Larry Vance claims that erosion on the edge of a recovered wing suggests the landing was a controlled one. The Boeing 777 disappeared while flying from Kuala Lumpur to Beijing in 2014. Dramatic footage has emerged of a woman being rescued from her car in torrential floods in Maryland in the United States. Onlookers formed a human chain to reach her car and then carry the woman to safety. 2 people have died and more than 100 have had to be rescued after heavy downpours over the weekend. Now, it might sound like he's got the magical powers of the boy wizard himself, but a 10-year-old boy has finished the new Harry Potter book in 59 minutes. Toby Lestrange can get through an average 400-page book in under 2 hours. That's some impressive speed reading, isn't it? So how's he done it? Minnie Stevenson met Toby to find out his tricks.
Such is the power of Harry Potter's spell that the boy wizard still gets fans queuing and camping until midnight to get their hands on the latest instalment. Harry Potter and the Cursed Child, not a novel this time, but the script of the new stage show turned into a book.
Excuse me, sir. Can you tell me where I might find platform 9 3/4?
We, of course, first met Harry Potter in book form in 1997, and a billion-pound film franchise soon followed when he landed on platform 9 3/4. As if by magic, we are there today. Now, Toby Lestrange wasn't even born when Harry Potter started out, but at 10, he is one of Potter's biggest fans. And to prove it, he sped-read the new book in just 59 minutes. So what did our discerning critic make of the latest instalment?
You gave it 6 out of 10. There's something that could be improved there.
It's the way that she got the story across that got the 6. For the actual story, it'd be 8 or 9 out of 10.
Toby's grandma taught him to speed read, a skill which she sees as an investment beyond the Potter years.
When you're a student, it's brilliant. So I've already sold him on the idea that he can read his 30 books a week and still have time to party. So this is how I'm going to get him when he's about 16, 17.
And wizardry is big business. More than 450 million copies of the 7 original Harry Potter books have been sold worldwide, turned into 8 films which have made more than £5 billion. The first batch of tickets for the new play Harry Potter and the Cursed Child sold out within just 24 hours, with the latest book already expected to be the best-selling this year. So is this the start of an entirely new Potter chapter? Well, at the premiere of the new stage show this weekend, J.K. Rowling has spoken.
No.
No, he goes on a very big journey doing these 2 plays, and then I think we're done.
As for Toby, his loyalties lie firmly with one character.
Who's your favourite?
Dumbledore.
Are you? What is it about Dumbledore?
Well, I actually just like him because of his cloak mainly.
He's got a great wardrobe. His wardrobe is...
Yeah, and he's really powerful as well.
Harry Potter may now be older and wiser, but the latest instalment perhaps proves that the magic lives on for another generation. Minnie Stevenson, 5 News.
And if you like Harry Potter, more of it on 5 News tonight. Danny's here.
Definitely. It doesn't stop at 6:30 because we will have a piece of Harry Potter memorabilia in the studio. The letter that Harry got in the Philosopher's Stone telling him he'd been accepted into Hogwarts is just one of hundreds of pieces of movie memorabilia going up for auction. They also include Christian Bale's suit from The Dark Knight Rises and Gizmo from Gremlins 2. Plus, should the honours system be scrapped after that row over David Cameron's awards? I'll be asking if it is time to ditch them altogether. That's all from us.
Danny, thank you. See you then. That's it for us, though. Sian Welby has the weather next. I'll see you again tomorrow. Danny's back at 6:30. Thanks for watching tonight. Bye for now.